Welcome once again to Conquering Retirement with the team from Northern Alliance Financial right here in Maine. Today on our program, financial advisors Peter Hansen, Lance Gilman. Lance is also our CEO. I'm your host, Mike Spangle. And gentlemen, today is a broadcaster day, meaning I want to hit you guys with some facts or fiction in retirement, stuff I pull from the internet, you hear around the water cooler, and I want to know what you guys think about this. Is the kinds of questions you also get in the office. You guys mind if I pepper you with some fastballs and questions?
Sure, that's fine.
All right,
pretty cool.
Do we need a
buzzer? Something different. Yeah, we need a buzzer?
We do.
Yeah,
we need a buzzer of some sort. But, you know, we know there's a lot of information out there, and we try to have some fun with the program. We know these topics can be serious. Everything from Social Security, of course, to your investments and fees and costs. But it can be confusing, and as the saying goes, a little bit of knowledge sometimes can be dangerous. So make sure that you double-check your facts, your information, especially before you use or implement financial strategies. So let's talk about this one. Let's see if we can get this one off the table first. Long-term care insurance can be expensive, and it is a use-it-or-lose-it policy. Is this still how long-term care works today?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I'd say initially,
I didn't see you hit the buzzer.
I didn't see you jump in.
Yeah. It's like, I'll take it.
Initially, I would say it's fact. In the traditional sense, when you're buying a traditional long-term care insurance, it's a use it or lose it, like your home insurance. You're paying a premium to your home insurance, and if your house burns down, glad you have it. If your house doesn't burn down and you don't use the insurance, it's use it or lose it, okay? You've paid all those premiums, but you did that. The traditional long-term care insurance where you're paying a monthly or quarterly premium, yes, that's use it or lose it. But there are newer alternatives to the traditional long-term care. So there's something called asset-based long-term care that we've been able to take advantage of a couple of times with folks that have a substantial asset that they are able to roll into what's called a hybrid long-term care policy. And this type of policy can act in one of three ways. It can act as if a traditional long-term care policy payout if, in fact, one or the covered people end up needing some long-term care service. But also, if you don't use it for that, and after 5 or 6 years of having the policy, if you say, I changed my mind, you can actually get a return of premium back. But if you die before you do any of those, it converts into a whole life policy. So I say it would be fact, given the way that the question was posed, but fiction, given that, you know, with help of an advisor, we have alternatives to that.
I remember long-term care policies and doing live events myself, and people coming out almost 15 years ago and saying they were going to raise my rates, double them, triple them on long-term care policies. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when the insurance industry said, hey, people are living longer. We can no longer operate like that. It kind of reminds me of, have you guys heard these stories about some of the largest insurance carriers in the United States starting to cancel homeowners insurance in places like Florida and California because of things like hurricanes and wildfires? Yeah, when the insurance agencies start to say, this is too expensive for us to take your money for a policy, there's real concern. I'm just worried about that. Where I'm going with this, because I know Lance is wondering, what in the world is he talking about? If insurance companies can start doing this, let's say out on the fringes of no longer offering brand new home insurance policies, I'm worried for today's retiree thinking that they've got enough saved for retirement. What happens if they start doubling the costs of our homeowners insurance, even when the home is paid off? I mean, this is an asset that we've let grow, but if we're going to stay in it, I'm worried. Are insurance companies right now seeing in the game, it's expensive to build, it's expensive to cover a home? Is this something we have to worry about in Maine?
Well, I think that the issue it actually is important what you're bringing up here, because the insurance companies do respond to what's going on in the country. And most insurance companies are not offering traditional long-term care plans any longer, just because they've just priced themselves out and they realize that it's ridiculously expensive. However, if you have a long-term care policy that was issued by a company, even if they're not currently issuing long-term care policies, that is a legal contract that you have with the insurance company, and it is binding based on whatever the stipulations of that long-term care, traditional long-term care policy are. So don't get discouraged by that, because they're not issuing policies anymore. If you have one of those policies, most of those policies are viable and very good and strong policies. Nothing wrong with it. However, going back to what we were saying before, many times what happens is whatever is in that contract is binding on the insurance company. What's not binding in there, and usually not written in there, is the premium. And so, as Spike was saying, with these homeowners, they just kept jacking up the premium rates and eventually just kind of priced themselves out. Eventually, that's kind of what happens with many of those traditional long-term care plans. But don't be discouraged by that. Let us take a look at it, see what you have, see what it says, and see what it provides you for coverage. Now, the other side of that equation is, what if you don't have any long-term care policy? What if you don't have even a traditional long-term care policy? That's what Peter was saying. There's additional policies out there that the insurance company has now responded to this ever-growing need. It's like the elephant in the room, where we know that there's a great potential that we're going to need some form of long-term care before we pass, and we don't have anything. So that's what you were saying.
Yes.
Like, the insurance companies actually have responded to that and said, well, we could create one of these hybrid plans where somebody has an asset, we hybridize that asset, which means what? Which means it's doing more than one thing. In other words, we're adding a long-term care rider provision onto that asset. If there is a need for long-term care, it turns on a benefit that in most cases you cannot outlive. But if you don't need that benefit, it just is part of your portfolio that goes to your heirs.
Thank you for that explanation, because yes, when I see something large like insurance industries changing, getting rid of versions of policies, I try to say, what is going on here and what do we need to do? And that's exactly what the team does here at Northern Alliance Financial. Yes, we realize that long-term care can be cost prohibitive, especially in standalone policies. I even think they're very hard to find now. But there are other solutions beyond self-insuring, beyond trying to save enough for you and or your spouse. Imagine the costs here in the state of Maine. I know that they can be upwards of $6,000 to $10,000, $11,000 a month, especially if you need memory care, mobility care. It can be incredibly expensive. Think about how much you have in your life savings and how quickly that would draw down. So for one of the solutions in your retirement plan, long-term care, please give us a call right here. We'll do a complete portfolio review. And when you come in, we'll give you a complimentary copy of Lance's brand new book, Conquering Retirement. More facts and fiction, what is true about your retirement in today's day and age, when we get back right after this.
Our team at Northern Alliance is very diverse in terms of the services that we offer.
We do take a team-based approach.
We carry multiple licenses so that clients can do everything within the Northern Alliance Financial team.
If it has anything to do with retirement, that's what we specialize in.
Budget planning, tax considerations, Social Security strategies, risk management, long-term care, Medicare, health planning, as well as legal and estate planning.
We really are a one-stop shop.
There's Lance Gilman, Peter Hansen, Jeremy Barnard, myself. We do have a staff that is great.
In Maine, we have multiple locations to cover the vast array of the state.
You know, you can come in and have a conversation in person. And a lot of people are looking for these days. Things after COVID have changed to more Zoom, phone call sort of things. And we'll do those things, but we appreciate and would rather have you come in person and have a conversation face to face like this.
We're pretty approachable, and we're going to listen to you. We're going to try to determine what your needs, your aspirations, those goals are, and then we're going to do everything that we possibly can to help you meet those goals.
It's lighthearted, it's carefree. We laugh like crazy. An atmosphere that I don't think is common in a lot of other practices.
We were talking about how well the team is bonding together, how similarly we all think in that what we do, we want to actually make a difference.
Average, everyday people helping average, everyday people.
You know, we truly do put the client first.
Our mantra has been, when you take care of people, people take care of you.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement with the team of Northern Alliance Financial right here in the state of Maine. Today with financial advisors Peter Hansen, Lance Gilman. He is the CEO. I'm your host, Spike Spangle, and we're talking about facts or fiction in retirement. I was really worried about this one. I'm going to come to you, Peter. The median retirement savings for baby boomers today is $200,000 a little bit more in change. Well, let's just say $200,000. $200,000 for today's baby boomers in retirement? That's the average? Fact or fiction?
Well, I happen to know that's a fact because I read it somewhere not too long ago. It wasn't
Well, if you read it on the internet, it's
book.
got to be true,
yeah,
right?
It was, 200, 205, 210,000. But that's a little bit scary. The median household income across the United States. That's tough. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what that says about American society, about what people are doing with, I guess they're not saving. The folks that we see coming in to visit with us, sometimes they might have that. Oftentimes they have a little bit more. Sometimes they have less. Regardless, it's important that people don't feel funny about going in to see a financial advisor, asking for help, to go to a fiduciary planner. I think some people have a misconception that only the wealthy, only rich people actually have financial advisors. The median household income needs a financial planner or some help more so than, let's say, somebody of great means. So I want to make that impress upon that.
You know, actually, I know that number may seem a little bit big when you think about it, like 202,000. But in reality, I think the number is, it seems to me it's larger than what I would have predicted that most people have in retirement. Less than $202,000 is what they actually have saved in retirement.
And that's what worries me, is that this experiment of the 401k, if you will, that started in 1978, putting the onus on us to save, that's what worries me, is that we can't go back necessarily and make up for 30 years of saving, which we needed to be doing. Now, I know the folks who come into your offices, they will have a lot more than that as well. But even then, it comes down to what is their monthly spend. You've seen people come in with $2 million and maybe they don't have enough saved for retirement because they spend $20,000 a month in costs. And so it really depends on what your number is. So that's one thing I don't like about those median numbers. Is what is your lifestyle? What do you have? So let's not judge on the number. But how can somebody who's watching our program think maybe right now of what they have in savings? What should they be thinking about? Should they look at their monthly budget to try to determine, like, hey, I really need to start catching up, or am I on pace? How can they figure out what that number means to them?
Yeah, so the other thing to keep in mind when you're talking about the boomer generation is many of the boomer generation, not only did they have their savings, which I think is pretty reasonable, considering that $200,000 and some thousand they have in savings, that's a median. So some have less, some have more, but they also have their Social Security. Many of them have pensions, and many of them are debt-free. So you put all those together, Spike, it's actually a fairly decent number to think about, right? And so when you just throw a number out there, you say, well, it's $202,000, and that's what they have for their retirement. It's like, that's not much. You're not going to survive very long on that. But then when you add in those other components, you're talking about guaranteed sources of income like Social Security and a pension on top of this and being debt-free. Many of the boomer generation, they're workers, they're savers, right? And so many of them pared down their debt. They're down to an operational need. They've got a pension, they've got their Social Security, and they've got another 200,000+ in the bank. That's a pretty darn good equation. Right?
But you said something in there as well about having the pension plans. Let me ask you then a percentage. You guys come up with the fact or fiction. A percentage number in your head. How many of them who come into your office actually have a pension plan or will have a pension plan? The people,
now?
Yeah, who walk into your office today.
Okay. Right, that changes the dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. I know the number of how many people still have a pension in the United States, and it's 12% of people that are retiring. I don't see 12% of the people coming into my offices having a pension. There's a few companies around that still have pensions, Pratt & Whitney. Let's see, there's the Shipyard and Maine Health, if in fact people have been there long enough.
Yeah, if they've been grandfathered.
Yeah. They've been there for like 30 years.
Exactly.
But no, I wouldn't say 12%. I would say less than that, probably 5%.
Oh, wow.
Which means 1 in 10, basically, or less than that, are coming in with pensions.
We're relying on the Social Security and the savings, which leads me to the next fact or fiction. It's that 60% of Americans believe Social Security benefits will make up the majority of their retirement income. Now, that's what Americans believe. I'm worried that that's true. I'm worried that people think that Social Security is going to cover the gap of what might be a shortcoming. How do you feel today about Social Security? Me personally, I'm worried about it 10 years from now. I think Lance believes it's going to be solved.
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat. 10 years from now, do you think there's going to be a reduction?
I think they're going to have to do something to adjust it. Yeah, I mean, just my own personal opinion, with all of the spending that's been going on, and they can't rob from it anymore because it's, it's going to be going into what they say default. They're already talking about giving 78 cents on the dollar. In future years, I don't know what politicians are going to want to go ahead and pull that trigger if they expect to get reelected again.
Exactly.
So I kind of agree with Lance. No one's going to want to touch it, but it's got to be addressed. It has to be taken care of. We have more people collecting on Social Security than we ever did, as opposed to people paying in, and that's part of the problem, right?
Right.
Well, but then it goes back to the original question: is 60% of the people feel like their Social Security is going to take care of their income needs in retirement. And so the question is, that's if it remains intact. So is the answer to that question true or false? Well, it's probably true that they believe it.
I believe that.
Whether it's the reality or not is a whole other question in and of itself. Much of that, Spike, is going to be dependent upon what their debt load looks like going into retirement. Let's assume that Social Security is solvent and it kind of remains the way it is. Many times we'll see that if a couple has worked hard and they both had decent paying jobs throughout the course of their lifetime, you put those two Social Security payments together and you look at their operational need, if they've pared down their debt, many times those two Social Security payments will take care of that operational need. So they would be right. The 60% would be correct.
But what happens when one of them passes away?
Okay, well, that's another situation.
Sorry,
that wasn't the question.
That's right. That wasn't the
That's
question.
a contingency plan where we would have to look at what other resources they have to cover that operational need when one of them passes.
Yeah, we're going to go out to break here in a second. I'm just curious, are you guys starting to talk to clients, though, about possibly trying to fill in that gap 10 years from now?
Oh, absolutely.
And something, we need to build in some, we don't want, just in case something happens with Social Security?
Absolutely part of what we do, and actually part of the book as well. Conquering Retirement is a whole chapter just on Social Security and retirement planning.
More Conquering Retirement when we come back right after this important message. But folks, do yourself a favor. Call the phone number here when you schedule an appointment to do your own retirement plan review. If you don't have a retirement plan, we'll help you put one together. We'll also give you a complimentary copy of Lance's brand new book. But more importantly, we want to give you the confidence to know that you can be and stay retired. No matter what facts or fiction you're seeing out there, why don't you talk to a couple of financial advisors who do this every single day in their offices so they can give you the facts over the fiction. Call the phone number you see right here. What is something that the state of Maine has for every single child born? We'll tell you what that is when we come back right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Conquering Retirement with Northern Alliance Financial, here with Peter, Lance. I'm your host, Spike. And I really did want to know about this one. It says there is something in place for every single child born in the state of Maine that can help them with their college savings. Is that fact or fiction, Lance?
That is actual fact. And it actually is a very cool thing because the Harold Alfond Foundation established an account, a 529 college savings plan account for every single child, not only just born in Maine, but if you actually move to Maine and you're going to school and you haven't graduated from basic your basic elementary, middle, and high school programs. So if you're still in school, if you're born, there's $500 just set aside for every single child born in Maine for a 529, which means that money can be used. It can grow essentially without any taxation, provided that those funds are used for an educational purpose in higher education. But also, if you move from the state, and now you weren't born here, they also, I think, have a $200 account that you can claim. Now, you have to claim it, though, Spike. That's the thing. If you don't claim these funds, it just goes back into the pool after a period certain, right? But every single child, whether they're born in Maine or moved to Maine, they have an account set up through the Harold Alfond Foundation. It's managed through the Finance Authority of Maine, FAME, and you have a Merrill Edge account set up whereby those funds can be placed in there for that child to have some form of higher education. The other thing that's really cool is we get this a lot. I'm sure you've probably experienced this too, Pete, because grandparents will come in all the time and they're like, I want to do something for because the kids are kind of taken care of, they provided for them and whatnot, but they really are interested in providing something for their grandchildren. So that's a way that they could contribute. Many times, if there is any kind of contribution to that particular fund in the year, the foundation will then match those funds up to a certain limit, up to $600 or more in matching funds per year.
This is, if you can't see, I need the meme going. My head is exploding right now. This is amazing.
No, it's very cool.
Not just the starting of it, but they will continue to match as you contribute. So as parents or grandparents,
right?
Anybody who puts into it. Now, from what I understand, you successfully used 529s for your kids, right?
I did.
Do you see this as an underutilized tool in trying to protect? Because I think this is where American families today are feeling the squeeze. Inflation is really high. Interest rates are high. But we're having a harder time saving for our own retirement. In fact, there's another story out there. The largest amount of hardship withdrawals from 401ks has been occurring right now. I know families are struggling with that, but if we can save like this with the matching from the state of Maine, this is a tool that can help us get our kids through those college years.
Yeah, absolutely. The other really great thing about the 529 is they just passed legislation with the Secure Act Part 2 in December of 2022, which essentially said it used to be that you had to use those funds in some form of higher education. Well, what if your kid doesn't want to go to college? What if they're just fabulous at YouTube and they develop all kinds of stuff and just become fabulously famous?
That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it, Pete? And they don't go to college, but you have all this money in a 529. Secure Act Part 2 basically said this, Spike. Basically, in 2025, you would be able to take that 529 and move it into a Roth account for that child. So imagine, let's say you've started out, and whatever it was, you could afford $50, $100 a month, and now that's up to like $20,000, $30,000. When the kid doesn't go to college, well, now starting in 2025, we can put that into a Roth account that child will have growing in a tax-free bucket indefinitely until they withdraw it.
This is amazing. And when you both are doing financial planning and you've got younger families who come in, or at least folks with kids going to college, how many of them do you see using these 529 plans?
Well,
these specific ones from the state.
Yeah, no,
I know people are aware of 529s.
A lot of times they don't know that those things are out there. So if you're watching today and this might apply, give us a call and we certainly will help you, because this is a resource that is out there for you that was developed by the Harold Alfond Foundation through the Finance Authority of Maine. And it's available for you and for your children and or your grandchildren. You want to get some help, just give us a call.
Oh, my God. I mean, we talk about people saving into their 401ks, their 403b, never leave free money on the table.
Right, exactly.
You know, and I'm a big proponent of saving more than the match. But you say, what is the match? You at least do that. But you could save for your children and you get a match from this amazing foundation into these 529 plans. Don't leave free money on the table.
No, absolutely.
I don't like to leave free money on the table. All right. I think we got one time, at least for one more. The safest place for my money is in the bank. Is this fact or fiction still today? Do you remember those two banks on the coasts? Are we back in the banking situation of 2008, or are banks still pretty secure?
I would take that and say, in my opinion, given what I do for work, both my parents were bankers as I was growing up. I'm one of 5 kids. We come from a family of banking. I would say that's fiction. I don't think the bank is the safest place to keep your assets.
Are you sure your mom and dad aren't going to be mad?
They don't care. They don't care. But I will tell you, in a financial Armageddon, and I've read this and I believe this, here's the kind of domino effect of what would happen. I think the first firms to go would be the brokerage firms that hold your assets, in other words, your invested assets, because there's no protection against market loss, okay? The second to go would be the banks. Banks are required to hold about 10% of assets on site. Your money's insured up into to about $250,000 per account. But what if the Federal Reserve doesn't start failing? Insurance companies, however, cash value insurance companies, the big ones, the ones that have cash value.
A-rated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have to have 100% paying ability, meaning, let's say you have a particular A insurance company that has $2 trillion worth of debt. Debt being, if there's a claim on every one of those policies in one day. To get an A rating, you have to have $4 trillion. You have to have 2 to 3 times paying ability. So if there's a claim on every one of those policies in one day, and they owe $2 trillion, they have to pay that. But to get an A rating, you have to have 2 to 3 times paying ability. I feel that, strongly, that the safest place to keep your asset is the big, strong insurance carrier, because they're kind of, in some sense, too big to fail, and they have the liquidity to go ahead and make the payout, unlike brokerage firms and unlike banks.
That is, wow. So the 1-to-1 ratio, in fact, you said even more with it.
I think the other thing about the issue, though, beyond just kind of the solvency equation, is many people, Spike, that we interface with have what we call low interest-bearing savings accounts at the banks. And so that's just a guaranteed way to lose money every day. Because if the savings account is earning 0.3, and the inflation rate is, let's say the average is like 3%, you know you're losing money every single day.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your FDIC, but you're safely losing money over time.
Right, because you're losing the purchasing power of those dollars. And there are other vehicles out there that can help you better retain those.
So we've got to define what safe means. So sure, the FDIC, you could get your money back. Thank you both for these wonderful perspectives on facts or fiction, everything from the 529s to where is our money safe. Folks, we want to make sure that you have a retirement plan, a real strategy, a written plan that is amendable, that helps you define and achieve your goals in retirement. Call the phone number you see right here to schedule your own no-cost appointment with the team here at Northern Alliance Financial, right here in the great state of Maine. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week.